Commander Veltar pressed his scaled palm against the cold metal console, watching the quantum drive's power core flicker one last time before dying completely. The bridge of the stellar mind fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the steady hum of failing life support systems. Red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow. "Day 3 of our drift," he whispered into his personal recorder, his voice heavy with resignation. "The quantum matrix overloaded during our jump from the Kepler Nebula. We're stranded between the Vega and Altair systems, roughly 2 billion kilometers from the nearest inhabited world." His crew of 12 moved like ghosts through the corridors. There was Zixara, his crystalline navigator, whose usually bright facial crystals had dimmed to barely visible sparks. The 3 aquatic Bendari engineers floated in their mobility tanks, their tentacles moving sluggishly as they conserved energy. Even the robust Ironhide security chief, Grexnell, sat slumped against a bulkhead, his metallic skin dulled with fatigue. The communications station chirped weakly. Officer Telvon, a spindly being with 4 arms and compound eyes, looked up from his console with defeat written across his insectoid features. His antennae, normally erect and alert, drooped like wilted flowers. "Commander, I've been broadcasting our distress signal on all coalition frequencies for 72 hours, Telvon reported, his voice barely above a whisper. "The automated responses keep coming back the same. Deep space rescue operations are classified as excessive risk. No vessel is authorized to attempt assistance beyond standard patrol routes." Veltar's mandibles clicked together in frustration. The Coalition's rules were clear but heartless. Ships that broke down in the vast emptiness between systems were considered acceptable losses. The mathematics were simple. The cost and danger of rescue operations outweighed the value of individual lives. "What about the merchant routes?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer. "The nearest commercial shipping lane is 12 days away at maximum burn. We don't have 12 hours of breathable atmosphere left, let alone 12 days. The environmental systems wheezed and groaned. Atmospheric processes that should have been humming efficiently were now stuttering, trying to clean air that was becoming increasingly toxic. The ship's internal temperature had dropped by 15 degrees over the past day, as heating systems prioritized life support over comfort. Veltar looked around the bridge at his dying crew. Young Kexley, the felinoid science officer fresh out of the academy, curled in her chair with her fur standing on end. The 2 reptilian brothers from engineering had stopped their constant chatter and now lay motionless in the corner, conserving their energy. Even the artificial intelligence core, Aria 7, had powered down to essential functions only. "Perhaps we should begin recording our final messages," Telvon suggested quietly. "For our families. The Coalition will eventually send a recovery vessel to retrieve the ship's data core." Veltar nodded grimly and activated his personal log recorder. The device felt heavier than usual in his hands. "Personal log, Commander Veltar, Viridian Space Navy. If anyone finds this recording, know that my crew served with honor until the end. We were conducting routine scientific surveys of the Outer Rim territories when our quantum drive suffered catastrophic failure." He paused, looking at each of his crew members. They had been exploring ancient ruins on a dead world, searching for archaeological evidence of a lost civilization. Now they would become another lost civilization themselves, another ghost ship drifting in the endless dark. "The Coalition's deep space protocols are clear," he continued into the recorder. "No rescue attempts beyond standard patrol zones. We understand the logic, but understanding doesn't make dying alone any easier." Suddenly, Telvon's antennae snapped to attention. His compound eyes reflected the console's flickering lights as he hunched over his instruments. "Commander, I'm detecting something unusual. A vessel just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, approximately 50,000 kilometers off our starboard bow." Veltar's hearts began beating faster. "Coalition ship?" "Negative, sir. The energy signature is completely unknown. It's not matching any profiles in our database. The ship's design is primitive compared to Coalition standards, but it's definitely real." The main view screen flickered to life, drawing power from the emergency reserves. Through the static and interference, they could see a spacecraft unlike anything in their experience. Its hull was scarred and patched, bearing the marks. of countless journeys through hostile space. Strange symbols covered its sides in what looked like dozens of different languages. The ship wasn't sleek or elegant like Coalition vessels. It looked like it had been built in someone's garage and repaired with whatever materials were available. "It's beautiful," whispered Kexley, her feline ears perking up for the first time in days. The communication system crackled to life with an unfamiliar accent, speaking broken galactic standard. "Unknown vessel in distress. This is Captain Kim Jin-ho of the human exploration ship New Dawn. We received your emergency beacon and are approaching to render assistance. Please respond if you can hear this transmission." Veltar's mandibles clicked in confusion and disbelief. Humans? The species that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel? The ones most Coalition members considered primitive and barely worth acknowledging? How had they even detected the distress signal when advanced Coalition ships had ignored it completely? "Shall I respond, Commander?" Telvon asked, his voice filled with something Veltar hadn't heard in days. Hope, the main view screen, flickered and stabilized, revealing a human face that immediately commanded attention. Captain Kim Jin-ho appeared younger than Veltar had expected, maybe in her early 30s by human standards, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her uniform was practical rather than ceremonial, showing wear marks from actual work rather than parade ground inspections. "We're going to get you out of this," she said with absolute certainty, as if rescuing dying aliens in deep space was just another Tuesday for her crew. Her galactic standard carried a strong accent that Veltar couldn't place, but her meaning was crystal clear. Telvon's antennae twitched nervously as he whispered, "Commander, the Coalition Handbook specifically states that first contact with unvetted species requires approval from at least 3 council members and a formal diplomatic protocol review." Veltar felt the weight of regulation pressing down on him, even as his crew was dying around him. "Captain Kim," he began hesitantly, his voice catching slightly, "Coalition regulations forbid contact with unvetted species. Your people haven't been approved for diplomatic relations. There are procedures, protocols that must be followed." Captain Kim's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Not anger or frustration, but something that looked almost like pity. "With respect, Commander," she interrupted gently but firmly, "my people don't leave anyone to die. In space. Lee, begin emergency coupling procedures." The camera angle shifted on the human ship, revealing a bustling scene of organized chaos. Human crew members moved with practiced efficiency that spoke of real experience rather than simulation. Training. Veltar counted at least 8 humans visible on their bridge, each focused on specific tasks without the careful hierarchy that defined Coalition operations. "Aye, Captain," came a voice from off-screen. "Engineering teams are already suiting up. Park, get those atmospheric processors online. We're going to need maximum oxygen production for the next 6 hours." Through the New Dawn's external cameras, Veltar watched human crew members emerge from airlocks in environmental suits that looked like they'd been repaired dozens of times. Patches covered patches in some places, and the suits' designs seemed to vary from person to person, as if each crew member had customized their equipment based on personal preference and experience. But their movements told a different story. These weren't the clumsy actions of primitive beings. The humans moved through the vacuum of space with confidence and precision that rivaled the best Coalition engineers. Their tools might have looked crude compared to sophisticated Coalition equipment, but they clearly knew how to use them. "Look at that," whispered Kexley, her feline ears perked forward with fascination. "They're using magnetic grapples instead of gravity anchors. That's actually brilliant for emergency situations." Engineering Officer Park's voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, atmospheric analysis of the alien vessel shows oxygen-nitrogen mix with trace xenon. We can match that easily. Their life support is failing faster than expected, though. I'm reading toxic buildup in their air recycling systems." "How long do they have?" Captain Kim asked, her attention split between multiple status displays. "Maybe 2 hours before it becomes fatal. 4 hours maximum." Veltar felt his blood chill. He'd known their situation was desperate, but hearing it confirmed by outside sensors made it terrifyingly real. "Then we work faster," Kim said simply. Cho, what's your ETA on the coupling? Chief Engineer Cho Min-jun's voice carried the calm confidence of someone who'd done impossible things before. First connection in 8 minutes, Captain. Full atmospheric transfer in 15. But their quantum drive is completely dead. We're going to need to physically tow them. On the external view, Veltar watched mechanical arms extend from the human ship with movements that seemed almost organic. The arms weren't the sleek, precisely engineered appendages found on Coalition vessels. Instead, they looked robust and adaptable, built for real work in harsh conditions rather than display purposes. Incredible, muttered Grexnal, the Ironhide. Security Chief. Those coupling mechanisms can apparently adapt to any ship configuration. Our Coalition standardized docking ports are supposed to be universal, but these humans are connecting to emergency hardpoints we'd forgotten we had. The first mechanical arm made contact with the stellar mine's hull, with a satisfying thunk that resonated through the ship's structure. Immediately, Veltar felt a subtle vibration as the human ship's more powerful generators began sharing power through the connection. Contact established, announced Engineering Officer Park. Beginning atmospheric transfer now. Sir, their internal air is worse than I thought. Carbon dioxide at dangerous levels, oxygen down to 14%. We need to flush their entire system. Within minutes, 3 more mechanical arms had locked onto the stellar mind. The human ship's life support systems, designed for deep space exploration, easily handled the additional load. Fresh, clean air began flowing through emergency tubes that the humans had somehow connected to the Viridian ship's backup systems. Veltar took his first truly clean breath in 3 days and felt hope returning to his multiple hearts. Around the bridge, his crew members began showing signs of renewed energy as oxygen levels normalized and toxic gases were filtered out. How? Telvon asked, his antennae now fully erect and alert. How did they know exactly where to connect? Our ship's specifications aren't in any human databases. Captain Kim smiled for the first time since the rescue began. Experience, Commander. When you spend your time helping people instead of following regulations, you learn to improvise. The airlock hissed open, and Chief Engineer Cho Min-seo stepped aboard the Stellar Mind, carrying what looked like a mechanic's fever dream. Her toolkit contained devices that seemed to have been assembled from spare parts, salvaged components, and pure determination. Behind her, 3 human engineers hauled equipment that defied every principle of Coalition design philosophy. Well, this is interesting, Cho muttered, running her hands along the sleek walls of the Viridian ship. Where Coalition vessels prioritized beauty and efficiency in equal measure, the Stellar Mind was a work of art. Smooth curves, integrated systems and technology so advanced it seemed almost alive. It's like someone built a starship inside, a piece of jewelry. Veltar watched nervously as the human engineer pulled out a handheld scanner that looked like it had been assembled in someone's basement workshop. Wires and components jutted out at odd angles, held together with what appeared to be industrial tape and wishful thinking. That device, Telvon whispered, his antennae twitching with confusion. It cannot possibly interface with our quantum matrix systems. Our technology operates on completely different principles, Cho overheard and grinned. That's what makes it fun. She ran the scanner over the quantum drive housing, and impossibly, it began displaying detailed readouts on a cracked screen. Your quantum matrix is completely fried. Looks like a cascade failure that started in the primary resonance chamber and spread through the entire drive core. The scanner made sounds that no Coalition instrument had ever made, clicking and whirring, like a living thing. Somehow it was reading systems that should have been impossible for primitive human technology to understand. How is that possible? Grexnal asked, his metallic features showing genuine confusion. Your scanner is interfacing with quantum-level engineering that your species discovered only recently. We may be new to space travel, Cho replied, crawling inside the drive housing with tools that looked like they belonged in a scrapyard. But we've been fixing impossible things for thousands of years. The principles are the same whether you're repairing a quantum matrix or a broken water pump. While Cho worked, Medic Han Soo-jin moved through the ship treating crew members who had been exposed to radiation leaks from the failing drive. Her medical kit looked even more improvised than the engineering tools. containing instruments that seemed to have been adapted from a dozen different purposes. "This is fascinating," she said, examining Kexley with a device that looked like a flashlight, crossed with a calculator. "Your cellular structure is completely different from anything in our databases, but the radiation poisoning follows similar patterns to what we see in humans." She pulled out a vial of clear liquid that definitely wasn't from any coalition medical facility. "This is a broad-spectrum cellular repair compound we developed for deep space missions. It should help your body process the radiation damage more efficiently." "But you don't know how it will interact with phelinoid biology," Kexley protested weakly. "That's true," Han admitted, checking her readings again, "but I know what happens if we don't try. Your cells are breaking down faster than they can repair themselves. This compound works by boosting natural cellular regeneration processes. The worst that happens is it doesn't work. The best case is you live." She administered the treatment, with confidence born of experience rather than textbook knowledge. Within minutes, Kexley's fur began to lose its sickly pallor, and her breathing became easier. The Bendari engineers were a bigger challenge. Their aquatic nature meant they needed treatment inside their mobility tanks, but Han adapted her approach. Without hesitation, she modified her equipment to work underwater, creating sealed injection systems that could deliver medication through their tank walls. "Incredible," whispered one of the Bendari brothers, his tentacles moving with renewed strength. "The treatment is working better than our own medical protocols would have." Meanwhile, Cho had disappeared entirely inside the quantum drive housing, accompanied by sounds that suggested she was rebuilding major components from scratch. Sparks flew, metal rang against metal, and occasionally she would emerge to grab another tool from her seemingly endless supply. "What exactly are you doing in there?" Veltar asked after watching her work for several hours. "Creating a hybrid system," Cho replied, her face smudged with grease and quantum coolant. "Your quantum matrix is too damaged to repair with proper parts, but I can bypass the damaged sections and route power through backup systems that your designers probably never intended to use this way." She showed him a component that looked like it had been welded together from 3 different technologies. "This coupling connects your quantum resonance chamber to our fusion reactor through a frequency modulator I built from spare parts. It won't give you full power, but it'll get you home." "That's impossible," protested Zixara, the crystalline navigator. "Quantum matrices require precise harmonic alignment. You can't just connect random components." "You're right," Cho agreed, installing the impossible component anyway. "According to Coalition engineering principles, this should explode and destroy both our ships. But human engineering isn't about following rules. It's about making things work when they shouldn't." 18 hours later, Veltar found Cho still working, now on her 3rd consecutive shift without rest. She was welding a power coupling that connected systems from 3 different technological generations, creating something that should have been impossible. "How long have you been working?" he asked, genuinely concerned for her health. "Time doesn't matter when lives are at stake," she replied, wiping sweat from her brow with a cloth that left more grease than it removed. "Almost finished. Just need to calibrate the harmonic resonance between your quantum field and our fusion output." She made a final adjustment, and suddenly the stellar mind came alive. Lights that had been dark for days flickered on. The environmental systems hummed with renewed power. The quantum drive, while not at full capacity, began generating the familiar vibration that indicated it was ready for low-power FTL jumps. "Impossible," Grexnal muttered, staring at readings that showed all major systems functioning. "These repairs violate 12 different principles of quantum engineering." "Maybe," Cho said with a satisfied smile, "but they work, and sometimes that's all that matters." The human solutions were rough, inelegant, and completely contrary to Coalition design philosophy, but they worked perfectly, turning a dead ship into a living vessel through pure determination and creative problem-solving that no textbook had ever taught. The New Dawn's galley was nothing like the elegant dining chambers aboard Coalition vessels. Instead of pristine surfaces and automated food dispensers, Veltar found himself in a cramped but cozy space that felt more like someone's home kitchen than a starship facility. Mismatched chairs surrounded a table that showed the wear marks. of countless meals, and the walls displayed photographs of crew members with their families back on Earth. Captain Kim Jin-ho sat across from him, sharing what she called emergency rations that tasted better than most Coalition formal dining experiences. The food was simple but satisfying, seasoned with spices that created flavors Veltar had never experienced before. "This is kimchi," Kim explained, pointing to a side dish that had an unusual tangy flavor. "My grandmother's recipe. We grow the vegetables in our hydroponics bay and ferment them the traditional way. Takes months to get it right, but it's worth it." Veltar's mandibles clicked with curiosity. "You grow food for emotional reasons rather than nutritional efficiency." "Both," Kim laughed, "but mostly because it reminds us of home. Space is cold and empty. We need to carry warmth with us wherever we go." The galley's atmosphere was alive with sounds that Coalition ships never experienced. Crew members moved through the space freely, grabbing snacks, sharing stories, and treating the area as a gathering place rather than just a feeding station. There was no rigid hierarchy here, no formal protocols governing who could eat when and where. "Why?" Veltar finally asked, the question that had been burning in his mind since the rescue began. "Your people barely know us. You gain nothing from this rescue. In fact, you're risking diplomatic complications and resource depletion." Kim looked genuinely puzzled by the question, as if he'd asked her why she breathed air. "Someone needed help. We were nearby. That's reason enough." But Coalition protocols specifically state that unvetted contact can lead to cultural contamination, resource conflicts, and political complications, Veltar pressed. "Your own government must have similar concerns." "We've rescued 17 ships in this sector over the past year," Kim said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of experience. Zalarian traders whose cargo holds caught fire, Morphic explorers who got lost in a nebula, even a Coalition military vessel whose crew was too proud to officially request assistance. She paused to take a sip of something that smelled like coffee, but had an earthier aroma. "Never reported it to any authorities, never asked for payment or recognition. We just help and move on." Veltar's complex brain struggled to process this information. His species had evolved advanced logical thinking specifically to handle complex social and political calculations. The idea of acting without considering consequences seemed almost primitive, yet the results spoke for themselves. "Your government doesn't forbid such contact?" he asked, trying to understand the human political structure. "Our government encourages it," Kim replied, her eyes lighting up with something that looked like pride. "We have a saying that goes back to our military traditions, leave no one behind. It started as a promise to our own soldiers, but it grew into something bigger. It applies to everyone now, not just humans." Through the galley's small viewport, Veltar could see human crew members still working on his ship. They had been at it for over 20 hours now, their shifts extending well beyond any reasonable duty period. Coalition regulations strictly limited work periods to prevent fatigue-related accidents, but the humans seemed to operate on a different principle entirely. "Look at them," Kim said, following his gaze. "Engineer Park has been awake for 36 hours straight, but he won't stop until your navigation systems are fully operational. Medic Han finished treating your crew hours ago, but she's still monitoring their recovery. They're not doing this because they have to. They're doing it because they want to." A young human engineer named Lee Jae-min floated past the viewport, in his environmental suit, carrying a piece of equipment that looked like it had been custom-built for this specific repair job. His movements showed the exhaustion of prolonged work, but also a determination that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than duty or training. "We rotate positions but never stop," Kim continued. "When someone gets too tired to work safely, they rest for a few hours and someone else takes over. But the work never stops until it's done." Veltar watched as two human crew members switched places at a repair station, the handoff happening with the smooth efficiency of a well-practiced dance. The tired engineer briefed his replacement quickly, then headed back to the ship, while the fresh worker immediately continued where his colleague had left off. "This is inefficient," Veltar observed, though his tone carried admiration rather than criticism. "Coalition work schedules are optimized for maximum productivity, with minimum resource expenditure. Maybe, Kim agreed, but our way builds something that efficiency calculations can't measure. Trust, loyalty, the knowledge that when you're in trouble, someone will come for you no matter what. She gestured toward the photographs on the wall, showing human families, friends, and colleagues. Every person in those pictures knows that if they're ever stranded in space, a human ship will answer their distress call, not because of regulations or protocols, but because that's who we are. The galley's communication system chimed softly, and Chief Engineer Cho's voice came through with an update. Captain, we've restored main power to the stellar mind and their quantum drive is stable at 60% capacity. Should be enough to get them home with some power to spare. Excellent work, Cho, Kim replied. How's the crew holding up? Tired but determined. Nobody's asking to stop. Veltar felt something shift in his understanding of these humans. They weren't following orders or protocols. They were driven by something that his advanced civilization had apparently lost along the way to becoming sophisticated and efficient. What you call primitive, he said slowly, might actually be the most advanced trait in the galaxy. The journey to Coalition Station Gamma 7 took 3 days, with the New Dawn maintaining a protective escort position alongside the limping stellar mind. Veltar watched through his viewports as the human ship adjusted its course repeatedly to match their reduced speed, never showing impatience or suggesting they should move faster. Incredible, muttered Telvon as he monitored the escort pattern. They're burning extra fuel to stay with us. Any coalition vessel would have given us the coordinates and left us to make our own way. The station appeared ahead of them like a massive metal flower blooming in space. Coalition Station Gamma 7 was a marvel of engineering, its rotating sections creating artificial gravity for dozens of different species. Docking bays could accommodate everything from tiny scout ships to massive cargo haulers, all designed with the geometric precision that defined coalition architecture. As they approached, Veltar transmitted his full report to the station commander, knowing the contents would send shockwaves throughout coalition space. The rescue footage showed humans performing engineering miracles with primitive tools. The medical data revealed treatment methods that surpassed coalition protocols. Most disturbing of all, it documented a species that offered unconditional her assistance without expecting anything in return. Station Control, this is Commander Veltar of the research vessel, Stellar Mind, he broadcast on official channels. Requesting emergency docking. We have experienced quantum drive failure and have been rescued by a human vessel. I repeat, we have been rescued by humans. The communication channel went silent for nearly a full minute before Station Commander Thexol responded, his voice tight with confusion. Commander Veltar, please confirm your last transmission. Did you say humans? Confirmed, Station Control. The human exploration vessel, New Dawn, under Captain Kim Jin Ho, has provided life-saving assistance and technical repairs. They are requesting no compensation and have asked only for fuel to continue their mission. Another long pause. Commander, maintain current approach vector. We're clearing Docking Bay 7 for your arrival. The human vessel will be accommodated in Bay 12. As the stellar mind settled into its berth with mechanical arms guiding it home, Veltar felt the solid thunk of connection to station power and life support. For the first time in days, his ship was truly safe. Through the docking bay's massive windows, he could see the New Dawn being guided to its own berth, looking small and battle-worn next to the sleek coalition vessels surrounding it. Captain Kim's voice crackled over the comm one final time before docking procedures began. No payment necessary, Commander. Just pass it forward when you can. Within hours, Coalition Station Gamma 7 buzzed with activity unlike anything in its operational history. Engineers from 6 different species descended on the stellar mind to examine the human repairs, their sophisticated instruments scanning every modification and jury-rigged component. This is impossible, declared Chief Engineer Vexith, a tall crystalline whose facial gems flickered with confusion. These power couplings connect 3 incompatible technologies. The harmonic frequencies should have torn the ship apart. His assistant, a young aquatic engineer named Fluxara, ran detailed scans of Cho's work. The quantum resonance patterns are completely outside normal parameters, but they're stable. More than stable, actually. These repairs might last longer than the original components. Word spread quickly through the station's scientific community. Within 12 hours, a line of engineers waited outside Docking Bay 7, all requesting permission to study the human modifications. Some began asking for copies of the human engineering techniques, hoping to incorporate the innovative approaches into their own work. Dr. Kolneth, the station's chief medical officer, spent hours reviewing Han's treatment records. "These cellular regeneration techniques are revolutionary," she announced to her staff. "The humans achieved better results with improvised compounds than we get with our most advanced medical technology." The station's communication center worked overtime, processing the flood of messages generated by Veltar's report. News of the rescue spread through Coalition space faster than any official announcement, carried by merchants, explorers, and military personnel who had never imagined that the galaxy's newest spacefaring species might be its most compassionate. As the new Dawn prepared to depart, Veltar received a priority transmission marked with the highest security codes. The message came directly from the Coalition Council chambers on the capital world. "Commander Veltar," came the voice of Councillor Prime Zethmara, "your report has reached the highest levels of government. We are immediately convening emergency sessions to discuss formal contact protocols with humanity. Your rescue has sparked galaxy-wide debates about our current deep space assistance policies." The councillor paused, and when she continued, her voice carried something that sounded almost like embarrassment. "Several member species are questioning why we abandoned proven rescue capabilities in favor of bureaucratic efficiency. The humans have apparently been conducting unauthorized rescues throughout this sector for over a year, saving lives that our protocols classified as acceptable losses." Through his viewport, Veltar watched human crew members making final preparations for departure. They moved with the same purposeful efficiency he'd observed during the rescue, checking systems and loading supplies with the calm confidence of people who knew exactly what they were doing. "Captain Kim," Veltar called over the comm as the New Dawn's engines began warming up. "Where will you go now?" "Picked up another distress signal about 40 parsecs rimward," she replied without hesitation. "Long-range sensors detected a ship in trouble near the Kepler Nebula. Someone else needs help." The Kepler Nebula is outside all established shipping routes, Veltar protested. "It's considered too dangerous for rescue operations." "That's probably why someone needs rescuing there," Kim responded with what sounded like a smile in her voice. "Take care of yourself, Commander. Maybe we'll see you out here again someday." The New Dawn's engines flared to life, pushing the scarred vessel away from the station with smooth acceleration. Veltar watched as the human ship aligned itself with the jump coordinates, its hull reflecting the light from nearby stars one final time, before disappearing into the swirling vortex of faster-than-light travel. Just another human ship answering, calls that everyone else ignored, carrying compassion to the dark corners of space where it was needed most. The New Dawn had vanished into the void, but Veltar knew that somewhere in the galaxy, another desperate crew would soon discover that in humanity's eyes, no one was ever truly alone in the darkness. Standing in his quarters aboard the station, surrounded by the comfortable efficiency of Coalition technology, Veltar finally understood what he had witnessed. Sometimes the most advanced trait a species could possess wasn't superior technology or sophisticated protocols. Sometimes it was simply the willingness to help a stranger, no questions asked, no payment required. The humans had taught the galaxy something it had forgotten in its rush toward advancement. That true civilization wasn't measured by how efficiently you could manage resources, but by how readily you would share them with those in need. The end.